I'll talk a little bit about what we do. Our company is called SCI, Satoshi Citadel Industries. We're not a Japanese company. We always get asked that. And you'll know later why we call ourselves that. These icons over here are all the services that we've come up with in the last 3 years. And we're a fintech company, so we're doing financial services. We do remittances, payments. We have even identity verification. We do Bitcoin trading as well, if you want to buy and sell Bitcoins or other cryptocurrencies. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. So my talk for the next 15 minutes will be about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and the blockchain. And it took me about, I would say, 6 months to really understand this technology. But I promise you guys, in the next 15 minutes, if you listen carefully, after 15 minutes, all your questions will turn into more questions. Yeah, that's usually what happens. So, in early 2014, right about the time when we started our startup, John and I, there was an article that came out in the New York Times, and I'm going to read a little bit of the first few sentences of this article. It said, a mysterious new technology emerges, seemingly out of nowhere, but is actually the result of 2 decades of research and development by nearly anonymous researchers. Political idealists project visions of liberation and revolution on it. Establishment elites heap contempt and scorn on it. On the other hand, technologists, nerds, are transfixed by it, and they see with it enormous potential and spend their nights tinkering with it. Eventually, mainstream products and companies and industries emerge to commercialize it. Its effects become profound, and later, many people wonder why its powerful promise wasn't more obvious from the start. What technology am I talking about? Personal computers in 1975, the internet in 1993, and I believe Bitcoin in 2014. And the guy who wrote this article, Mark Andreessen, I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, he's a very influential man in Silicon Valley. He invented the web browser. Netscape, you guys are familiar with Netscape. He's also one of the biggest venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. They have a $3 billion fund. And he was one of the first to go cloud in terms of technology. He's basically a visionary. And he wrote this really, really good piece on why, it's called Why Bitcoin Matters. So, we're going to go a little bit into what it is, how it works, and why it's important. So like Richard asked, I saw some hands raised. You guys have heard about this? Has anyone here never heard about Bitcoin? I'm sure you've all heard about it because it's always in the news. It's always like something bad or scary. Recently, that's been changing though. Here's a little story I'm going to tell you guys about something that happened in late 2013. There's a ESPN live telecast of, I think it was a college football game. And there was a guy that held up a sign that said, "Mom, send Bitcoin." And he put a QR code there. And guess what happened? In a span of, I don't know, a few days, he received over $20,000 worth of Bitcoins from all over the world, from hundreds of people. So people were kind of shocked. This was in like all the tech headlines and all the, websites that talk about this kind of thing. And they were like, wow, it's amazing he got $20,000, blah, blah, blah. But I think the question is, why is this not still normal? Why is it so easy to send information, send videos, send photos, send files, but we can't send money that easily? When all of technology is so advanced, we have AI, we have computers that can beat world champion Go players. But if you want to send something online, you have to go through some hoops. So it's because of this problem there's always in in an untrusted network like the internet, value transfers or transactions that have value require trust. And on the internet, you can't really trust the other person on the other end. It's like, okay, let's say I do a transaction with you and I pay you 1,000 pesos, and I give it to you right now, and we make a transaction and you receive it, and there's no need to trust me because you got the money. But if let's say we're online and I scan my 1,000 pesos and send it to you and say, hey, this is my payment, I promise I won't send other people the same thing, right? That's called the double spending problem. And this problem is why we need these centralized trusted intermediaries whenever we do online transactions. So right now, before Bitcoin was invented, there was no way really to do this without a trusted middleman. So these trusted intermediaries are there not just to process the transactions for us and make sure they're valid, but also they're there to prevent money laundering, prevent terrorism, protect users' funds and identities and privacy, and also prevent fraud. But the reality is online credit card fraud is actually higher than it's ever been. It increased by, I think, 40% in 2016, year on year. Protecting users' funds and identities, I think the recent incident with a big bank kind of like negates that. Terrorism and money laundering still happens to this day. So the trusted intermediaries are actually, they're doing a good job, but it's not perfect. And this is because on the internet, there are what we call protocols, web protocols. So TCP/IP allows us to connect networks together. HTTP gives us the World Wide Web. SMTP, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this is what makes email work. VoIP is what makes voice calls over the internet work. But there is no payment protocol for the internet that's native to the internet. So we have all these like different companies like Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Venmo. They're all middlemen trying to facilitate these transactions for us. A little bit of trivia. You guys are familiar with error 404? Not found, and there's other what we call HTTP error codes. There's an error 402, and it's called payment required. The people that invented the web foresaw that one day somebody's going to invent a digital cash system or micropayment scheme. But on their Wikipedia page, it says it has not happened yet. Obviously, this was before Bitcoin was invented. So in 2008, an anonymous programmer going by the name Satoshi Nakamoto published a white paper, like a thesis. It's an 8-page explanation of the technology that he invented. And this guy, nobody knows who he is to this day. Some say it's the NSA. Some say it's a group of people. Some say, I don't know, maybe it's some guy from the future that came back and gave us this kind of technology. But yeah, so I'm going to show a short video of, explaining a little bit, it's just like 5 minutes, of how it's the value of cryptocurrency technology.
What if there's a technological advancement so powerful that it transforms the very basic pillars of our society? A technology which fundamentally influences the way that our economy, governance systems, and businesses function, and could change our conceptual understanding of trade, ownership, and trust. This technology already exists, and it's called cryptocurrency. People often think of Bitcoin as only virtual money or a transaction system. But if you look closer, you'll see that the monetary aspect is just the tip of the iceberg. That's because Bitcoin is a groundbreaking internet technology for which money is merely one of the possible applications. Money exists to facilitate trade. Through the centuries, trade has become incredibly complex. Everyone trades with everyone worldwide. Trade is recorded in bookkeeping, and this information is often isolated and closed to the public. For this reason, we use third parties and middlemen we trust to facilitate and approve our transactions. Think of governments, banks, accountants, notaries, and the paper money in your wallet. We call these trusted third parties. This brings us to the essence of Bitcoin. Bitcoin software enables a network of computers to maintain a collective bookkeeping via the internet. This bookkeeping is neither closed nor in control of one party. Rather, it is public and available in one digital ledger which is fully distributed across the network. We call this the blockchain. In the blockchain, all transactions are logged, including information on the time, date, participants, and amount of every single transaction. Each node in the network owns a full copy of the blockchain. On the basis of complicated, state-of-the-art mathematical principles, the transactions are verified by the so-called Bitcoin miners, who maintain the ledger. The mathematical principles also ensure that these nodes automatically and continuously agree about the current state of the ledger and every transaction in it. If anyone attempts to corrupt a transaction, the nodes will not arrive at a consensus, and hence will refuse to incorporate the transaction in the blockchain. So every transaction is public, and thousands of nodes unanimously agree that a transaction has occurred on date X at time Y. It's almost like there's a notary present at every transaction. This way, everyone has access to a shared single source of truth. This is why we can always trust the blockchain. The ledger doesn't care whether a Bitcoin represents a certain amount of euros or dollars, or anything else of value, or property for that matter. Users can decide for themselves what a unit of Bitcoin represents. A Bitcoin is divisible in 100 million units, and each unit is both individually identifiable and programmable. This means that users can assign properties to each unit. Users can program a unit to represent a eurocent, or a share in a company, a kilowatt-hour of energy, or a digital certificate of ownership. Because of this, Bitcoin is much more than simply money and payments. A Bitcoin can represent many kinds of property: 1,000 barrels of oil, award credits, or a vote during elections, for example. Moreover, Bitcoin allows us to make our currency smarter and to automize our cash and money flows. Imagine a healthcare allowance in dollars or euros that can only be used to pay for healthcare at certified parties. In this case, whether someone actually follows the rules is no longer verified in the bureaucratic process afterwards. You simply program these rules into the money. Ergo, compliancy up front. The unit can even be programmed in such a way that it will automatically return to the provider if the receiver doesn't use it after a certain amount of time. This way, the provider can ensure that allowances are not hoarded. A company can control its spending in the same way, by programming budgets for salaries, machinery, materials, and maintenance so that the respective money is specified and cannot be spent on other things. Automizing such matters leads to a considerable decrease in bureaucracy, which saves accountants, controllers, and the organization in general an incredible amount of time. The programmable open character of Bitcoin allows us to completely rebuild and innovate our financial sector and our administrative processes, make them more efficient and transparent, and significantly decrease bureaucracy. But there's more. In an Internet of Things, our economy will be dealing with machines that actively participate in the economic traffic. In fact, they're already here. Think of a vending machine, or drones delivering packages. These machines are unfamiliar with the concept of trust, but Bitcoin is not. Because of Bitcoin, the drone can be 100% certain that it will deliver the package to the right recipient and know for sure that it's been paid for. And we can program the vending machine in such a way that it will automatically keep track of its supplies, order new supplies from the supplier, and pay for them automatically. Of course, you'll understand that this is only the beginning. Internet technology is disruptive and breaks the status quo. It opens markets and breaks the positions of middlemen all the time. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have caused a paradigm shift. It's time to explore this new technology constructively and critically, and openly discuss potential applications.
So yeah, pretty exciting, right? Maybe not. But yeah, so Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. This is what it's about, what you just saw. So what is Bitcoin? It's not this. You see this all the time in the news and in the websites. People think that these coins are actually Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is a digital currency. It doesn't exist in physical form. Also, it's the first cryptocurrency. So when Bitcoin was invented, there was nothing like it before. It's not just an innovation. It's not just that someone thought about a better way to improve on, let's say, PayPal or Visa. It's actually from the ground up. There has been nothing like this in the history of technology. So not just a currency, but also a platform. So Bitcoin software is what our startup uses to provide financial services. That way, we're using this technology for free. It's open. Anybody can use it. Anybody can tap into it. Because it's open source. So you guys are probably familiar with what open source means, but when we say open source, it means everybody can just check the code, see what's inside, see if there's anything malicious, copy that, make their own version, make it better, or whatever you want to do with it. It's also peer-to-peer technology. So when we trade with our business partners abroad and exchange money, we don't have to go through any banks, which is kind of really, really a big deal. I mean, if you've done international banking, it's kind of a pain. And there's a lot of fees, and it takes 3 days, and for some reason, it's very, very tedious. It's like the financial world has been left behind by the technology world. It's decentralized. This is one of the most important aspects of this technology. There is no company. Bitcoin is not patented or owned by anyone. It's not there's no CEO of Bitcoin. You guys are familiar with BitTorrent? Anybody here use BitTorrent? Yeah, the cops are waiting for you. So the decentralized nature of Bitcoin is actually what makes it possible. Because decentralization allows it to have no central point of failure. So if one Bitcoin node shuts down, 10 more will just sprout up and take its place. Bitcoin is the first digitally scarce asset or technology. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins. And this is hard-coded into the software. Everybody knew this from the start. And one Bitcoin, like said in the video, can be divided into 100 million units. So this digital scarcity didn't exist before this technology was invented. Because, I mean, I could copy 1,000 pesos digitally 1,000,000 times and spend that at the same time online. And without those trusted third parties, then I could get away with it probably. Because of this digital scarcity, Bitcoin started to gain value in the last 7-8 years. So like Richard said, in 2010, somebody bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoins. He went online, he went on a forum, he said, I have a lot of Bitcoins. I want to buy pizza. Can somebody send me some? And I'll send you some Bitcoins. This was the first real-world transaction using Bitcoin. Those 10,000 Bitcoins are worth, I don't know, $25 million today or something like that. So this is the price of Bitcoin for the last how many years? We started our startup around 2013, and we built it across all this volatility. The thing about Bitcoin is, this aspect of it, the monetary aspect and the speculation aspect, can be totally separate from the technology. So our business and our services will work even if Bitcoin is $200 or $2,000 in value. So the easiest way to connect to the Bitcoin network is to download a wallet. It's free. There's several from the US, there's Coinbase, there's Blockchain from Luxembourg, Copay is an open source project by a US company, and BitBit is our wallet in the Philippines where you can convert Bitcoins to pesos and pesos to Bitcoins, pay your bills, send money to each other, cash out your Bitcoins into a bank or that kind of thing. So the next part is the blockchain. The blockchain is, how do you say this, the heart of the technology. There's a lot of hype surrounding it. People are saying, oh, we're going to do blockchain. We're going to do blockchain for our company. We're going to do blockchain this, blockchain that. But it's not that easy. The blockchain is simply called the blockchain because it's blocks of transactions connected in a chain. There's no magic behind it. The way Bitcoin works is transactions are collected every 10 minutes and verified. And then they're added to the previous 10 minutes of transactions. So it's a chain of blocks of transactions. This ledger, this accounting system, is immutable, meaning it cannot be tampered with. It's once it's added onto the blockchain, it's there. Like for you to tamper that or to alter that sometime in the future would require tremendous amount of resources. It's distributed, so everybody has a full copy of the blockchain. Everybody using the Bitcoin network has a full copy of the blockchain. This allows this technology to solve double spending. So if I try to spend my Bitcoins more than once, the first transaction will be seen and recorded. So if I try to spend it again, it will get rejected automatically. It's secured by advanced cryptography and Bitcoin mining. So a lot of people ask me about Bitcoin mining all the time. They're like, Miguel, how do I get into Bitcoin mining? You know, I wanna do that. I wanna do that. It's not that easy nowadays to do that because Bitcoin mining has turned into a multi-million-dollar industry. Miners are nodes in the network that verify transactions. So every 10 minutes, they compile these transactions into blocks and add them to the chain. The miner that successfully adds the block gets a reward. And this is a Bitcoin reward. So there's an incentive to help the network. As the incentive is new Bitcoins will be given to you. So without the miners, actually, there is no blockchain because they're the ones that add the blocks. And this is one of the most genius parts of this technology because it allows the security of the network to be an emergent property instead of being outsourced from a third party. Like you don't need to hire a security company, you don't need to get some security software to protect your technology. Just because of the way it's designed, there's an incentive to help the network. So if I had, let's say, a big server farm and I want to sabotage the Bitcoin transaction, there's more incentive for me to just help the network instead of try to sabotage it because there is a reward. So if I had enough computing power, I could earn as well. So back in 2009 or 10, you could use your laptop and earn several hundred Bitcoins a day just by turning it on and processing transactions for the network. Today, you're going to need a warehouse full of very expensive equipment that's dedicated to Bitcoin mining. So we have this in China right now. Rooms bigger than this, full of computers that are just Bitcoin mining. Programmable money is what we think is going to be the future of this technology. And I can think of like hundreds of examples of programmable money applications, but I have one, and imagine if all our government spending was on the blockchain. Imagine if everything was transparent and every peso was accounted for, and you could see where it goes, and you could see who spends it, and you could see where it's actually pretty amazing if you think about it. Next generation technologies, like earlier these guys were talking about AI, autonomous machines, Internet of Things. All of these technologies will use blockchain technology. I mean, I'll give an example. There's actually a really cool story that John told me about this. They're building decentralized autonomous corporations. So imagine an autonomous vehicle that has AI and drives itself. It registers itself as a company, as a taxi company, and it starts to make money, pays for its own maintenance, pays for its own gasoline or solar charging, and it earns enough money to buy another car. Going through the computations and calculations, if it's going to be profitable, it's going to buy another one, and then it's going to be 2 cars under this decentralized autonomous corporation on a blockchain. And it could grow into something bigger. It could be applied into any other technology or machine. And in the Internet of Things, like the video said, 50 billion machines all over the world will be connected to each other and communicating with each other, and they'll need a way to pay each other. So your refrigerator could actually order more milk from the grocery store and have it delivered automatically without even you thinking about that. So yeah, it's already happening. There's some big companies getting into blockchain. This is just one example. I could give hundreds more. A few more minutes. There's the Internet of Value that's being created right now by companies like us. We had the Internet of Information for the last 25, 30 years. And it allowed information to flow freely between people peer-to-peer. It disrupted media, publishing, telecommunications. All of these, all the companies that couldn't adapt fast enough died a natural death. Now there's an Internet of Value. Value can now be transferred as freely as we can transfer information. So you could pay someone across the world, anytime, anywhere, instantly. There are, this is like a two-year-old slide, and this has probably at least tripled in number. These are just some of the companies that have come up in the last 3 years. So you have Rebit over there, which is our remittance platform. There's payments, trade finance, financial data, merchants, trading platforms, microtransactions, investments, everything you can think of. There is a blockchain application for that. There's a blockchain startup right now working like us, building and preparing for the future. This is from a report by the World Economic Forum about distributed ledger technologies called the blockchain. And you can see here, 24 countries are now interested in building blockchain applications. 90 of the biggest banks and corporations are joining blockchain consortiums. There's been over $1.5 billion in venture capital investments. So just to end this quickly, 5 points that I can share with you about the value of this kind of technology, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Monetary sovereignty is just a fancy way of saying you own your own money. You're not beholden to a government or an organization. Nobody can freeze your account. Nobody can confiscate your money. And we take this for granted because we don't live in a country like Venezuela or Zimbabwe where their money is being debased 30% every year and they have no way out. They're stuck there. This technology offers these people a way out, actually. It's also, like my examples, you know, if we can use this for government services, I think if that's the only application we do with this, it's worth it. Because you cannot alter the transactions. Once it happens, it's recorded and it's there. And you cannot stop someone from using censor transactions. This is also really important. This is actually where most of the growth of our company comes from. Bitcoin allows us to ignore borders and send value to our partners across the world instantly and fast and easy and cheap. And it allows us to provide services for other people to take advantage of this. So Rebit, which is our remittance company, can cut the cost of sending money from, say, Korea to the Philippines by half or more than half. And it's a big deal for OFWs, and we all know how important these people are to our economy. So the more money they can send home, the better it is for them and their families and even our economy. This is also really important. You know, the Philippines was actually the first to invent, how do you say this? Smart money was the first digital money that was invented. And the reason why it never took off, we believe, is because it only worked with smart. They were not interoperable. Imagine if the internet was not interoperable, if you could only send Gmail to another Gmail account. So everybody needed to like download different kinds of email clients. This allows any Bitcoin wallet, our Bitcoin wallet, can send Bitcoin to any Bitcoin wallet in the world. It's agnostic. Inclusivity, this is the company's mission. Our mission is really like to promote financial inclusion. And in the Philippines, there's like 3% credit card penetration, 80% without bank accounts or something's ridiculous. And a technology like Bitcoin, hopefully our startup can ignite some kind of like revolution in terms of allowing people to be included in this global internet economy. And last but not the least, the third parties are in trouble. If your service is related to verifying transactions or verifying documents or even being, let's say, something as simple as a notary. If you do a transaction on the blockchain, it's automatic. You don't need these third parties. And we believe that it's going to open up so much commerce and finance all over the world between previously like places where you couldn't do this kind of thing, So because it functions simultaneously as a currency, an asset, and a platform, Bitcoin can help unleash the full economic power of the network age. So this is actually from, I don't know if you guys know Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn founder. He wrote a piece called Why the Blockchain Matters. So I hope I was able to explain at least a little bit. If you have more questions, feel free to ask after this.